Okay, so talking about the makeup of family, this is something that young adults are often considering, thinking through. Uh, Lots of different definitions of family. In the last 50 years, the size of families is smaller on average. People have fewer kiddos. We also uh, kind of observe more diverse family structures, and these diverse family structures are more common. So, step families and half brothers, half sisters, single parents, lots of different combos. The picture on this slide is my family, and there are cousins that grew up as siblings, and half brothers and sisters, and steps, and all kinds of loveliness like this and in this picture. But I call it all family. So you may have a similar kind of a hard to explain relationships in your family photos too. Lots of folks are waiting longer to marry and to have kids. So folks are living longer. It used to be quite rare for folks to have beyond two generations in a family that were alive. Now three and sometimes four generations is really common. Um, there are a lot more people who are remaining single than used to be the case. So, family and what family means is dramatically changed in the recent history. So I want to share with you the family life cycle model. This is I this is a theory. It's a tool. If this is useful, go with it. There are ways in which this is also problematic. There are some, like most tools, it has its pros and cons. So I want to throw it out there and for what it's worth. The family life cycle model is trying to use developmental kind of stages as we think about them for an individual to talk about the stages that families go through. So, predictable, universal stages of development in a family. So, the idea here is that each stage is made up of developmental tasks. So, families have things they need to do at different stages, right? Different milestones, so to speak. Um, and that at each stage we have particular needs, expectations, different roles. And again, like stages in an individual development, the transitions between stages are more stressful, and it's where we find more conflicts, right? Um, where the family is in this life cycle would also argue about what kinds of factors are going to lead to their well-being. So the focus here is on the family's internal organization, the roles of the folks in the family, and how this changes over time. This was created by Duvall. He saw these family cycles as cyclical, changing over time as things were folks were added, different roles, different needs came in. So far this kind of works. It could be a uh, good model, useful tool. Next slide's going to get a little complicated, so hold your onto your hats here. This is the family life cycle model. The idea here is that um, you have in yellow, this is a one adult household. It could be female or male bachelor, right? Bachelor one, two, and three. The one, two, and three are the different ages of the person, right? Um, and it kind of clocks all the different ways that this could be changing, right? Single person becomes a couple at different ages and stages. Um, the blue, where it's dependent nest, this is when you have a younger kid. Autonomous nest is when you have a kid 6 or over, so they're in school. They're doing more of their own thing, more of the day. And so that feels like a very different kinds of needs and roles for the family. Um, There are some ways that this could work that we could be talking about. Um, Most folks at 35 to 64 who are single may have similar needs and wants. Their family and how they think about family may be similar, maybe. Okay. Um, a dependent nest, so a couple or a single parent with kids under age 6, that feels real different than with kids who are in school. That might work as a universal across families. But there's other parts of this that don't quite, right? Because like most models, it doesn't account for all eventualities. So again, not saying it's perfect, but it may be useful for some applications to explain some things. Um, so the idea here again is that the developmental tasks for families, if you achieve your developmental task, then you're likely to have greater satisfaction in later developmental tasks. So if you do better at parenting and are healthier as a parent-child or a couple and a child family, in the dependent nest stage, you're going to be more healthy as once the kid goes off to school. And again, like other stage models, if you are doing less well in previous stages, that leads to doing less well in later developmental tasks. Okay, so again, there are limitations. Not all families fit this model. What about couples that don't have kids? What about combined families? What about folks who have children early or late? Is this a same kind of transition? There's a little bit of leeway for that because there are a couple different dependent nests, depending on the age of the parents. This doesn't quite work. Also, the theory was originally created in 1977. So folks are having kids later and are living longer than they used to. So that may add different kind of stages than used to be there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about career development here. And career development, this is thinking about your progress through career. And the idea that your careers, like other aspects of your life, develop in stages. Um, some of Super's theory here of career development is focused on the idea that um, we need to think about how important our work role is compared to other roles in our life. And Super talked about the work role as opposed to the life space, which was whatever happens outside of work. Super's career development model has been used to create um, tests to figure out where people are in their career development. Um, and Super often talked, like other stage models, about people reverting to previous stages and needing to resolve an early stage well in order to be healthy and successful in later stages. Okay, so here's the model. You will notice that according to Super's career development, we start career development real early, 4 years old, age 4 to 14. We're figuring out who we are and where we fit in the world, and that helps us to understand what kinds of careers we are cut out for, what we want to do, right? Um, then we go to exploration, getting a little bit more concrete about what I want to do. And then establishment. So this is young adulthood. I'm getting established in my job. I'm kind of advancing, working on getting kind of invested in this job. Super argued that the next thing was maintenance. So you hold on to that job. You innovate that job. So you are starting to change the nature of the job that you have become established in. And then at the end, you start to withdraw a little bit from your job as you are preparing for retirement. Okay. So, as I talked about before, work influences our relationship commitments. And having a stable income is a prerequisite for a lot of folks before they are interested in making committed spousal kind of commitments. Um, Folks who are married tend to make more than folks who are unmarried, even when we control for age. And it also seems to be the case that being married influences our attitudes about work. So married folks tend to be more interested in income potential of a job and less satisfied with their current income level than folks who are not married at the same age. And this makes sense if we think about the previous theories about the stage, that we're about building and establishing and planning for the future. So if you've got all of that as your main focus, you may be much more interested in um, the income potential of a job. Also, when you work, what kind of job you work can influence relationships. So whether you're working in the same place and whether you are working regular hours or irregular hours, and whether those hours coincide with those of your spouse. Okay, another thing to consider here is paid work versus household work. So over our lifetimes, historically, men spend more time working for pay, and women spend more time in unpaid household work. This fits with traditional gender roles. Women often take some time off, um, depending on situations that may be more or less, but take some time off if they become mothers to become mothers. When elders, parents need care, it is more often women that take time off from work to do that. Um, this amount of time spent is also related to the fact that women tend to earn less across their money across their lifetimes than men. Okay, so a little bit here on some explanations for how we handle the unpaid household work. Um, some folks have argued that one of the reasons that women do more unpaid household work than men, and men spend more time working for pay, is that um, the relative resource model. So he who makes the most money makes the rules. So guys get paid more, so they make the rules, and the rules include not having to do as much household work. Um, that doesn't seem to work as an explanation for why gender uh, predicts household workloads as well as it does, because women who have higher incomes than their spouses, who are men, still tend to do more of the household work than their male partners. Um, Another way of thinking about this is divide and conquer, so specialization. And this is that um, uh, guys have in a heterosexual couple, males have their contribution and women have theirs. Again, this is very heteronormative and kind of built on traditional gender models. But this also doesn't quite, specialization doesn't quite provide a good example or explanation here either, because women who work full time still do as much or more household work as women who work part time. So if it was you do yours and I'll do mine, then you'd expect women who worked more outside of the house to do less in the house, and that's not the case. So household work seems to be quite gendered Um, and there's a lot of juggling. There's some research to suggest that this is changing, but it is still the case that women do a fair bit more household work than men in heterosexual couples. Okay, another of these role kind of conflicts or negotiations here is juggling between family and career in terms of parenting. So whether parents work outside of the house is can be predicted by the gender of the parent. As I said before, women work outside of the house fewer hours across their life than women who are not parents or than men. It also is predicted by the age of the child. So as children get older and go to school, it is more possible for um, both parents to work without having to afford some other sort of childcare. Historically, the work that mothers have uh, done after going to work outside of the house has been called the second shift. It has been used also to talk about the work that parents of any sex and any gender do um, to keep a household running, provide for children after coming back from work outside the home, but it was initially talked about for mothers. Another question or concern that folks had more historically than they do these days, it's much more common for both parents to work outside of the house than it used to be. But children don't necessarily suffer because both parents work outside of the home. If parents choose to both work outside of the home, even from a young age, this is not necessarily bad or worse for kids than if parents stay home. Um, on the other hand, the US, compared to other industrialized countries, is not a great place to be a working parent because we don't provide paid maternity leave. And the US government, the federal government, only mandates 12 weeks unpaid. Many parents end up working part time in order to provide childcare for their child, and part time work is often underpaid and has limited benefits. So there are problems with that way of negotiating this. When moms work, dads are more often involved in childcare. So if mothers are working outside the house, there's more likely to be uh, more participation of the father in childcare. Again, these roles are shifting, but we still tend to have a lot of families looking like more traditional gender roles amongst heterosexual couples, particularly when children are young. All right, and so that is what we've got for young adulthood. I look forward to reading your posts on the discussion board. If you want to talk in person, we can do that on Wednesday night. And I will see you online then.